Hello, everyone. Everyone, yeah, because I got a huge audience for this. Hi to anyone who is viewing this. I enjoyed. I obviously must have missed this because I really enjoyed doing this before, and I decided, hey, well, let's try to get back in there. Let me get this quite right. Try to get back in there and do another one. So that's partly it, and partly I'm very introverted, so I don't really get a chance to share my thoughts a lot, you know. So I have like numerous things that's going on in my head at any given time, and I don't really share that too often with people. Plus, I tend to have a very small circle too, so. But anyway, on this segment of Just My Thoughts, I'm going to get kind of like into a bit of a philosophy, right? So, I noticed this pattern within myself, right? I'm very truthful, like as a person, okay? I'm a very honest person. I do not care to lie. I'm not saying I wouldn't lie, like if the situation was dire enough, then I'm sure I would lie, but it's not something I really care to do. It's not something I do very often, you know. I just don't care for it. If anything, I'll misdirect. But I don't like to lie. Misdirection, my wife would argue that's lying by omission. I can see what she's saying. I don't know if I agree with that. But, I mean, I figure like, hey, I'm going to answer whatever question you ask me. And if I can misdirect you without lying and you don't catch it, that's not my fault. But that's neither here nor there, right? So a little while back, as I noticed this pattern, and actually kind of what my wife has said about, you know, lying by omission, right? I was debating within myself, like the purpose of intellectual honesty, and that's kind of getting off topic. I might come back and do another one on that, but for our immediate purposes today, right? I was trying to define what is truth, okay? And after giving this some thought, I came up with, can you see that? 5 versions of truth, okay? And I know that can be shocking, like how can there be 5 versions of truth? But I'm going to lay it out for you. So the very first one, you have objective truth, okay? Objective truth would be like, I mean, this is all painting that we accept reality, that we're not in some kind of simulation of some sort, right? So this is bearing that we all agree on what reality is. So objective truth would be, we are in the Milky Way galaxy. We are on the planet Earth. I am male. That would be objective truth. Those are factual things that can't really be denied. Although these days, some might question the male part. Subjective truth, right? Subjective truth would be, I think that the best 2 rappers are Royce 5'9" and Jay-Z, right? That would be subjective truth. you can't really, it's subjectively true, but you can't really prove it factually, you know what I mean? So after that, there would be comparative truth. All right, so comparative truth would be, I'm 6'2". Okay, so on average, I would be considered tall. Okay, but were I in the NBA, I would be considered short. So comparatively, I could be both tall and short depending on the situation. So that's comparative truth. So that's 3, right? The fourth one, I do not care for. Like I feel like personally, the further you get away from objective truth, it gets muddy, right? And I feel like this one is the furthest away from objective truth. The fourth one is personal truth. I'm not a fan of personal truth, but personal truth can be like, oh, well, these people were trying to hold me back because they don't like who I am as a person and they feel threatened by me. Blase. You know, you can, if you are paying attention to a lot of the media these days or social media, you'll hear personal truth all over the place. I'm not a fan. All right. So yeah, that's personal truth, right? So that's 4. The last one is kind of interesting, and that's hidden truth, right? Hidden truth lies within personal truth. Hidden truth is like, why do people do things? Okay, so you could say, well, I did this because trying to think of an example. Hidden truth. All right, so let's say like a person beats up another person, right? And they're like, well, you know, you gotta understand that I feel threatened and I didn't like this, you know, he made me feel uncomfortable and I just wasn't safe around him. And it's like, well, that could possibly be true, but as far as hidden truth, there are a lot of things that could be under the surface, right? So you could say, hey, you're dealing with issues, personal issues. You could say that maybe this person reminds you of somebody who hurt you in the past. You could say that maybe you have some racial issues that you don't understand. And those could be closer to the surface. The person might even recognize that to a certain extent, even though they may not admit it to anyone else. They could possibly recognize that, right? But then you get an example like, well, why does this woman? I mean, it can go male or woman, but I'm just using women as an example. Why does this particular woman always have relationship issues? And it could go back to childhood issues with her father, childhood issues with her father not being there. It could go back to issues of how she might have saw her mother treat men. And this could be all below the surface that she might not even be aware of, right? So the first example was kind of like the topper level where you can kind of might possibly be able to see it. That example was a little more below the surface because it's kind of hard to know things from childhood that much. Like, you could know them subconsciously, but you may not know them consciously. Like, most people don't have memories that go that far back, and if they do, it's far and few in between, right? So then the lower like even a lower surface, say like third level surface, could be like human beings are tribal. Like, human beings are tribal because just sort of evolution. So a person could be like, well, I had to stop that guy or whatever, and not realizing you're really acting on like a tribal instinct, evolutionary wise. You have no clue. Like, that's so far below the surface. So that's what I mean. Like, that's hidden truth, right? So that would be my five kinds of truth. Like, I've given this some thought, and that's kind of what I came up with. I'm gonna roll this around a little more. I want to build on it and see if there's anything else I can come up with, or if, I don't know, like, does it go higher? Is there something I'm missing? Because am I some way, is it some way incomplete, right? So I have to roll around and beat on it a little bit and test it out just to see, right? But as of the moment, that's kind of my theory. And if something changes, I will return and put, let you guys know. Not that I'm sure anybody really interested, but I just put it out there. So I myself personally find, like, I tend to try to stay more towards the objective point of view, the objective truth point of view. So I would say, like, if you were like, okay, Lawrence, can you describe yourself? I would say, well, I'm a man, I'm a husband, I'm a son. That would be, the basic level, right? So then you were like, okay, Lawrence, well, could you go a little deeper, right? So I would go, that's another thing I'm discovering. Like, it seems to be levels within each category, I think. Like how I gave you 3 levels for hidden truth, because, like, if I was going to a second level of objective truth, that those first ones I named was definitely first level. So if you said, hey, well, can you give me a second level of defining yourself in objective truth, I would say I'm an artist. I would say I'm an intellectual. I would say I'm black. Now, the thing is, that second level makes me uncomfortable, right? Because if you say, well, I'm an artist, factually that's true, but at the same time, then it gets messy. Like, well, how do you define artists? You might have different people that have different definitions on artists. More people might be like, oh, well, maybe you're not an artist, maybe you're an illustrator. It gets muddy, right? So that's why I like to stick closer to the objective end of the scale. If you say, well, you're intellectual, I'm an intellectual, true, by how I define it, how I see myself, right? But somebody else might be like, no, you're a complete moron, so you can't be an intellectual. Like, all right, possibly in comparison to other people, that might be accurate. Like, if you compare me to, say, Jordan Peterson, Sam Harris, Coleman Hughes. Those are all high intellectual guys. Like, I do strive to one day achieve that kind of level. Like, but I wouldn't say I'm fit to be in the same room as those guys. Like, I wouldn't say I'm fighting within their weight class. Say it like that, right? So for me, a more realistic look at it would be like Joe Rogan. Like, Joe Rogan, he's very open. He's always trying to grow, and I watched this show for years, and I watched him evolve and grow as an intellectual, and that's what I'm striving for. Like, he didn't really come up in that intellectual arena. It just sort of was a byproduct of growth, and that's kind of how I feel about myself. Like, I didn't come up in that arena, but this is just sort of a byproduct of growth, you know, trying to evolve as a person, and always striving to try to get better. Like, growth is the big thing with me. What was the third one? Oh, black. Black is interesting. All right, yes, technically I am black, pretty light-skinned individual. I don't really define myself as black, and I know that. Yes and no. All right, yes and no. So look, right, if you ask me, I define myself as a man. And I guess if you want to get down to it, I am a black man. But I just don't really... I feel like I am a man, but I would not classify myself as a black man. I would not classify myself as really any particular kind of race, but there are times where you have to. Like, if you have to fill out an application or something, and they'll ask you, like, well, what's your race? So then you have to pick a classification, okay? So in that situation, then I will define myself as black. But to be honest, I don't really think of myself in those terms, which I know for black people, it can be shaky for them. Like, I met some black people that find that to be a little offensive. But I feel, this is my personal thoughts on the matter, I feel like as many titles that you attach to you, okay, like well, I identify as this, or I'm this, I'm that, as many of those titles as you attach to you, those are chains holding you, right? So the minute you say I'm a Republican, that means you are confined within that box as a Republican. It separates you, right? So if you're a Republican, then that means you can't be a Democrat, or you can't be a liberal, or you can't be anything else, right? So the minute you define yourself by that, you are purposely limiting yourself. I don't like to do that. That's just my personal way of thinking about it. But I don't like to limit myself like that. Like, I'm always looking for growth, and I don't know where the future is going to go. Like, and plus, I want to be open to change my mind. Like the whole political party, right? For example, if you define yourself as a Republican or a Democrat or whatever, you are limiting yourself, right? So what I see is most people, they pick a party, right? And let's say, so I use Republican as the first example. Let's say Democrat this time, right? So you choose Democrat. Now what that means is you're not really allowed to, like, say, hey, I like something that's going on in a Republican camp, right? Because that's the other team. And if you are on this team, you cannot like anything that team is doing, right? It's sort of like, it seems so elementary school type BS, you know. So plus the other thing is, when you're on a team, you want your team to be right. So you always want your team to win. So you will be like, it doesn't matter. This is my team, then I vote with my team. I vote for my team and whatever my team wants to do. And at that point, you're no longer really thinking. Like, you're just, I'm going along with the group now. Like, you're not getting a mob mentality, I would say, but you're kind of in group think a little bit. And you're forced to stay in that box, and whatever that box is doing, that's what you're going to be doing. So that's why I don't really like to define myself by a group or like unnecessary titles, you know. Like I said, so I would never really define myself as by a political party. You know, I don't know. Like, to me, it's just very limiting. I would never want to limit myself in that fashion. Now, what I would say is like, hey, I like heist movies. Okay, Thomas Crown Affair, Ocean's 11, like those are some of my favorite movies. So I like a good heist movie. But by me saying that, it does not mean I can't like a good romance movie or a good suspense movie or a good action movie. It doesn't limit me in that fashion. But other things where you get limited, I don't really mess with, you know. So yeah, that's just kind of my take on that. So the thing with black, I don't like to be confined to, well, I'm black, so I gotta support everything black. Because then if I saw something, which I see a great many things that I don't really agree with in black culture, then I would have to kind of like roll with that, right? And it's not like, I see many things wrong with different cultures, so it's not like I'm particularly spotlighting black culture or anything, but I'm just using that because that's the example. So like, I would never really try to define myself in those terms, you know. So I don't know, like I noticed I just like to keep everything to its barest terms and very open. Like I'm always trying to be open, and I'm always trying to grow, you know. Like, I know there are things that I might have believed in the past that I no longer believe, and in order for you to have that openness to grow, you don't want to confine yourself, because what I think happens is a lot of time people will build this identity, well, I'm this, I'm that, whatever, and then later if something conflicts with that identity, they don't want to tear that down. I don't want to destroy this identity that I put years into building because this one thing doesn't go with my identity. Even if I might feel that this thing is correct and my identity is wrong, people will typically reject it. It's like cognitive dissonance, you know. So yeah, personally, I just try to keep things down to their barest terms, so that way I'm open to freely move and I'm open to grow and not really be restrained by such titles and whatnot. Trying to think if there's anything else I have to say on the subject of truths. Not a big fan of personal truths. I think I mentioned that already. But personal truths, here's the thing I don't like about personal truths. Personal truths do not actually have to exist in reality. You just need reality to reinforce it. All right. Now let me explain what that means, because I'm sure that probably sounds confusing. So I can say my personal truth is, I'm trying to think of a personal truth I might have heard. All right, a woman would be like, well, all men are cheaters, right? All men are cheaters, and they worthless. You can't trust them. All they do is hurt you. Okay, so that's her personal truth. And then she meets with a guy. She gets with a guy, and the guy does cheat, right? So she could be like, well, see, that's what I knew. I knew that all men are just cheaters, blah, blah, blah. I knew this guy wasn't crap. Now, that could be coincidence, right? That's a possibility for that outcome. Another possibility for that outcome is it could be self-fulfilling prophecy. Like the guy could have cheated because he was like, man, look, I'm getting tired of you always accusing me of cheating. And you know what? I just cheated. Now, I wouldn't say that justified it in any manner, but I have heard people say that before. So that's another possible outcome, right? Another possible outcome is you could have had 5 guys, right? 4 of the 5 you just dropped, and then the 5th one cheated on you, and that's the one you remember, right? So it's like you could really only be seeing what you want to see, and that's what I mean. Like, you really only need reality to reinforce it. It doesn't really technically need to happen in reality, although, you know, in that situation I suppose it did. You just need reality to reinforce it. Like, sort of like, you might be like, well, some people will say, well, white people are just evil and they just want to hold you down and they don't want to let a person get up. And they'd be like, well, all right, is that true? Like, have you had a person, like, did a white guy just show up at your job and try to oppress you? He just knock on your door and say, hey, you're black, I'm going to oppress you? Like, how do you... Well, you if you just look around, it'll be clear to see it. It'll be like, well, that's a possible explanation, I suppose, but there are many other possible explanations. You're just looking and choosing that particular explanation and using that as your personal truth, like, but you don't really have much evidence to reinforce it. So that's what I mean. Like, it only needs to be just enough that you can kind of somewhat say it's true. You know what I'm saying? But it's not, it may not actually be true. It's just, you just need enough to just reinforce it. Enough to just keep you going, you know? Like, if you were like, oh, well, white man is keeping me down. Like, I won't name names, but I knew a particular guy, and he was always saying, well, they fired me because, you know, the white man always try to keep you, they don't want you to get up. And it's like, all right, that's your truth. But also, I witnessed you going to work high a lot. I witnessed you going to work drunk a lot. Possibly, that might have had something to do with you getting fired, but I'm sure that's not it. Perhaps it was just the white man trying to keep you down because he personally cares about you and he wants to destroy you. And I'm getting off in the subjects here and there. And plus, this is pretty touchy subject matter. I don't want... well, I'm not really worried about consequences because nobody watches this, but I'd rather not get funny looks from anybody who does watch this. So Yeah. So I suppose that might be it. You know, I don't want to make this too long. I just want to share my theory, the five truth. Five truths. So to go over this once again, there's objective truth, subjective truth, comparative truth, personal truth, and hidden truth. And those are the five truths. So just my thoughts. If anybody, I don't know, has any thoughts they'd like to share on the matter, I'm always open to consider things. Or if you just want to say, hey, screw you, dude, I'll take that too. Feel free to leave anything in the comment section. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Until next time, those are just my thoughts.